What's up, you guys? My name's Monsol and I'm with Nootropedia, and today I'm going to talk to you about microdosing LSD. And if you wait till the end of this video, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about microdosing other substances like psilocybin and ayahuasca. So guys, today we're going to talk about microdosing LSD, and we're going to start off with why microdosing is valuable in the first place, and then we're going to get into some of the nitty-gritty details on how to do it safely, and specifically what tools I use and how to purchase different things in order to get your microdosing LSD on. So guys, microdosing LSD has become incredibly popular, and specifically in regions like Silicon Valley, where some of the high mental performers and entrepreneurs are using the LSD microdosing in order to improve their problem solving, creativity, and come up with some really creative new solutions. So guys, why microdose in the first place? Well, there's a little bit of evidence from the 1960s and a lot more evidence, mostly anecdotal, from today. But if you go back to 1966, Dr. James Fadiman did a trial study where he brought in something like 20 to 30 different engineers, physicists, mathematicians, basically really, intellectual knowledge workers. And he had them bring a problem that they had been struggling to solve for months, in some cases years. And when they took a microdose of mescaline, they were given the opportunity to try and solve some of these problems. And 44% of these intellectual workers were able to come up with some kind of radical solution for what Jamie Wheal calls wicked problems. These are, big problems that had been worked on for many, many months. So this first trial study by James Fadiman showed that microdosing, in specifically mescaline, could improve creativity and problem solving. And like I said, 44% had some kind of creative solution, and this was a practical solution. Many of these became patents, they became theories or certain principles in physics and math. So these were actual practical applications with the microdosing, not just a subjective feeling more creative or feeling like they could do more problems. It was an actual change to their creative capabilities. Now, unfortunately, because of the legal status of LSD and many of these other psychedelic compounds, there's not a ton of research, but some of the research that we do have suggests that psychedelics, specifically LSD, can improve with anxiety, depression, can help with focus and concentration in the correct doses, and obviously it can help with creativity, problem solving. But aside from all of these cognitive advantages, there seems to be some advantages for the individual to just be a better person. When I interviewed Jamie Wheal, who's the author of Stealing Fire and the co-founder of the Flow Genome Project, he said that people who are using microdosing were reporting smoking cessation, less binge eating, less alcohol consumption. So there's a number of different lifestyle factors where people just felt like they didn't want to engage with these negative vices or these bad habits in their life. So guys, a lot of people who get involved with microdosing want to know how specifically do you do it. So I want to start off with a point from Dr. James Fadiman, who recently spoke at the MAPS conference about psychedelics, and he suggested that basically if you're taking a microdose, it should be sub-perceptual. So you really shouldn't have any kind of cognitive changes associated with the usage of any kind of psychedelic for microdosing purposes. Now, there are plenty of people who use psychedelics and they microdose in order to feel some kind of an effect, and oftentimes it's a subtle improvement in mood or a subtle improvement in concentration or creativity, and that's fine. I don't want to create any kind of rules where someone feels like it's not microdosing or it's not correctly defined as microdosing, but just keep in mind, Fadiman, by the strict definition, suggests that microdosing should be sub-perceptual, which is usually in the 10 microgram range for LSD, but you can use it a little bit higher if you want to go to 12, 15, even 20 micrograms if you you specifically find that it's valuable for you. So the right dosage is going to depend highly upon the individual, but a rough guideline that I use is the 10 to 12 micrograms of LSD range typically helps me with focus, concentration, and physical endurance. And the range between 12 to 15 micrograms typically helps more with the creative problem solving. And so this is going to depend on your body weight and a number of different factors, including how experienced you are with the substance, but keep those general guidelines in mind if you're just starting out. So guys, as always with nootropics, and especially with these kinds of drugs like LSD, safety is always the first and most important thing. Now, my recommendation is simply find a friend whom you trust that has a source of LSD. I don't recommend doing anything illegal. I'm not advocating doing anything illegal, but if you're going to go down this route, find a friend, make sure it's going to come from somebody that you trust, or if that has been, something you've tried to do for many months or years and you haven't been able to find it, then maybe look at the dark web or the deep web. There are some online portals where you can purchase this anonymously, and it'll be useful for your pocketbook because it's a little cheaper, and you'll hopefully be able to get a lot higher quantity at once, so that you don't have to constantly be seeking the LSD or other different psychedelics from various friends. Now, no matter what you end up doing when it comes to purchasing the LSD, make sure you also pick up an Ehrlich kit. You can go to dancesafe.org. You can pick up this kit. It's super simple. It's about $30 if you pay for some extra shipping. But what this is going to help you do is determine whether or not you actually have LSD or whether you have a potentially very dangerous alternative called N-Biome. Now, N-B-O-M-E basically. So this is going to turn purple if you have a true LSD or similar substance. So again, it's a very cheap product, but this is going to help make sure you're safe. So guys, after you've done an Ehrlich test and you are sure you have LSD or you're sure that you have a safe product, we're going to move to volumetric dosing. And this is really important, and it's not as complicated as you may think. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do is get a small pipette dropper bottle like this. This is an half-ounce bottle, and you can find this at any pharmacy pretty much. I found it at Central Market in Austin, Texas. But this is going to be useful for creating your microdosing solution. So guys, find a weighted scale. I use a milligram scale, which is about $40 to $50. And if you're using nootropics in the first place, you should probably already have one of these scales. So I simply fill up the pipette bottle with about 10 grams of distilled water. Now, distilled water is very important. You want to make sure you get the cleanest form of water possible so that it doesn't interact negatively with LSD, the substance. Now, you can buy a bottle for like $1. I prefer using a Berkey, which is a metal water purifier, reverse osmosis purifier, simply so that it avoids the BPA that can often happen with plastics. But if you're using a plastic distilled water bottle, not a big deal. It's not going to kill you. So once you have your 10 grams of distilled water in the pipette dropper, you are simply going to add a single tab of LSD, which is 100 microgram dose, into the pipette dropper. Now, if you are good at math, you'll see that the 100 micrograms are going to dissolve and distribute evenly within the distilled water. So guys, now you have a dose range where 1 milliliter of this water is going to equate to 10 micrograms of LSD. So guys, just a note, if you think that volumetric dosing, which costs maximum $70 to $100, is too complicated or too expensive, consider this. If you cut up a small LSD tab and try to microdose that way, there's all kinds of problems. Number one, it's so small, it's very challenging to cut the tab in the correct doses. So you're going to have all kinds of varying doses instead of a consistent schedule that you can test and make sure you're using safely. So guys, if you're cutting up a tab of LSD, you're not not accounting for hotspots. Now, hotspots are essentially where the LSD droplet on the paper has gone completely in different directions, different pattern, and it's not exactly organized on the piece of paper. So you might have one section that has, 90% of the LSD and another section that doesn't have much at all. So you want to make sure you're ensuring you have the right dosage with each of these. So guys, when you're using LSD for microdosing purposes, you want a dosage of about once every 3 to 4 days over a 2-week period. Then take 1 to 2 weeks to rest, reintegrate, and cycle off of the microdosing LSD so that you can start again at a later date. So guys, this is the recommended dosing schedule according to Dr. James Fadiman, according to a number of other scientists, and also a lot of anecdotal reports about microdosing LSD. Now guys, once you are actually putting the sublingual solution under your tongue, I want to make an important note. Make sure you swish around the water in your mouth a little while before you swallow it. The reason that we use this solution and the reason that you put a LSD tab under your tongue is because you want the drug to enter your bloodstream directly through sublingual administration under the tongue. If you swallow it, it simply won't have the same effect. It won't enter the bloodstream as quickly or as effectively. So we want to put it under our tongue, which is the same thing that you want to do when you put some of that pipette water into your mouth. Just swish it around in your mouth. That'll make sure you actually have the psychoactive ingredients entering into your bloodstream. So guys, with psilocybin, it is much harder to microdose. That doesn't mean that it's impossible, and for some of you people who like the more natural route, psilocybin can be a great alternative. Now, if you're going to go that route, just keep in mind different mushroom batches, different mushroom caps. They have totally different amounts of the active ingredient psilocybin, which means you might take a couple pieces and see no results. You might take a couple pieces and see a full-on trip. So it's very challenging to titrate the right dosage when you're using psilocybin or mushrooms in order to microdose. Now, that doesn't mean it's impossible, and in fact there is a similar compound that you can purchase which is called O-acetylpsilocin, which is essentially an analog of psilocybin, very similar, and you can use that in a 3 to 4 milligram dose range. But for a lot of people who want to use psilocybin for the natural reasons, the synthetic compound I just mentioned might not be effective, but it's another option if you can find it online. Now, it's probably going to be far more complicated to find O-acetylpsilocin than LSD, but it is an option for you nonetheless. Now, finally, there are people who use ayahuasca, and I'm a big proponent of this. This is an MAOI inhibitor. It is helpful for essentially allowing DMT to remain psychoactive without breaking down, so that there's plenty of spiritual aspects to it, but there's a lot of biochemical as well. Thanks for listening to this video. I'm already drenched in sweat because I'm in Austin, Texas right now, but look, I'm doing it for you. Microdosing LSD is such a great way to improve creativity, problem solving, and help with a number of other ailments like anxiety, depression. So I really wanted to get this information to you. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below, send me an email, and go ahead and subscribe to this channel so that I can keep producing this kinds of content for you. But again, I hope this is useful. I hope it's given you the specific tools that you need, that you can buy in order to get started microdosing the right way, and giving you a few things to make sure you're safe as well. So take care, guys. I'll see you next time.